Hey, what's going on, everyone? Astrologer Eric Rosen here. Welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. This is the weekly horoscope segment that I do that covers the astrology from Wednesday all the way up until Tuesday of the following week. I like to do these for kind of like a midweek check-in, but also to get you through the following week. And so this is actually going to be covering from March 19th until March 25th. We're going to be talking about a lot of astrology today. We're in between eclipses. We're heading into the solstice. There's a lot to cover here today. But before I get into that, of course, as always, if you want to get your own personal astrology reading with me, dive deep into the transits and what's going on for you, you can click on that link down below. Or if you just want to do more of a self-study of your natal chart, I have an ebook out for that. You can click on that link down below for that as well. So let's talk about this, shall we? We're starting this horoscope for March 19th, so very last day of Pisces season. So first of all, if you can reach, if you're not too tired after all this slushy, sloggy, just sleepy Pisces energy, give yourself a pat on the back for making it through. You've been illuminating a lot of subconscious crevices, whether you know it or not, maybe even connected to some past lives, the past, the subconscious patterns and programs playing out, and hopefully some dreams too, hopefully releasing that old karmic weight that brings up Pisces zones, but also Saturn, that it's so much about this understanding that we were doing this work through this entire Pisces season in order to create space for a new dream to emerge forward. Because what's really interesting about this zone that we're in this time in astrology is there's almost everything is focused in Pisces and Aries, the end of the zodiac, the start of the zodiac. So in a lot of ways, we're still wrapping up a lot of Pisces energy, but we're also heading into new initiations with the Aries energy of taking action and moving forward in new forms of kind of like, who do we gonna be in this new world that we're all collectively entering into. But it's still very slow because we still got so much Pisces. This is not a typical solstice that we're entering into with that sun on March 20th coming to 0 degrees of Aries like it does every year, where this is the spring solstice. This is the official start of the new year. Like, this is the true new year. Like, the calendar system was based upon some really bizarre just thinking based upon kind of this like Caesar type of thinking, and we could go all day long and back and forth about how it's strange to start a new year in the dead of winter. So for astrological purposes, for energetic purposes, the fertile soil, the spring forward into action energy is Aries season. But as I said, it's not typical, because while the sun is exalted here in Aries, you know, it's like God and his warriors like getting ready to go. And you know, what is it that we need to do to express our intensity of our identity in this reality that we all live in? But immediately it's got to deal with Venus retrograde, it's got to deal with Mercury retrograde. Those retrogrades are trying to work together. They're trying to find out a lot of clues around, wait, hang on, maybe don't rush forward, get triggered, act impulsively. Maybe like stop, look within, and being like, how are we changing as individuals? This is going really deep with Venus about our identifications with money, our values, which we've already been looking at that really deeply, unless you've been suppressing it, which is possible with all the Pisces energy. But Saturn has been starting to make that sextile. It's actually been in it with that Uranus and Taurus. And so this is definitely looking at the evolution of spiritual values, that like really committing to that. Like, this is about really tuning and programming our behavioral patterns to actually fit a spiritual expression that is just in integrity with our soul's code, our soul's blueprint. It's our intuition. It's what God is saying to us. If it feels angelic or intuitive, I think we have to like make sure that it's still rooted in the physical reality, that we can actually make basic sense of it. This deals a lot with creativity. I actually think the magic formula for going through this week, knowing that we're in that lunar eclipse in Virgo energy for the next 6 months, and so we're integrating that, but then we're heading to this solar eclipse in Aries, not this week, but on the 29th of March, that this is a lot about anchoring in spiritually, intuitively, your divine, being that divine conduit. Like, what is God, creator, universe asking me to create in this physical reality? Now, the funny thing is that in a lot of ways, the message has already been there. We're already should have probably been doing it. And actually, that's the part of the getting the slop out of our lives, is to be quicker on the uptake and actually commit more fully, even if there's fear or there's uncertainty, there's anxiety, to trusting our intuition to take those steps forward. And knowing that if there's delays or if the world's not ready for it yet, then that'll be readily apparent. That's when we know we're still in a design phase in the ethers and deep in the subconscious and the daydream state of like what we could possibly be doing better to innovate. That this is about bringing in the magic when a lot of the world is getting sucked into the Pisces media zone of endings and fears and things like that. You can be a beacon of light with your creativity, like what you're bringing to certain situations that fit your spiritual values that you've been innovating for a while. But, it's like cash flow off this, right? Taurus rules currency. It's about building bridges with other people. Honestly, there's so much focused around people and connections and deep healing that can happen with that this week. I think that's the biggest highlight, because it's Sun coming in to Aries, but it's dealing with, wait, I got to look within. I've got to look at my value systems. We have to look at how do we as individuals impact our relationships that are around us, and making sure that there's a consideration for everyone's needs in the picture. And that's why Venus it's not its favorite spot in Aries, because it's like, shit, I gotta like deal with other people's needs and wants and desires as well. And so a lot of this like coming together energy and relationships and people is going to be looking at what are common core solutions. That it could feel like compromise at first, but honestly, it's not. It's more just like humbling the ego to be like, hey, actually, you probably wanted to do that thing because it was just some rash idea that you thought would be stimulating, or it would meet some desire of something that you're wanting to kind of consume. This is actually about getting back to more of a creator mindset, that really the ego sabotage, the subconscious sabotage that I've been talking about, the fears, the wishy-washiness, the getting sucked into media, the conflict with people, all that goes away when we just anchor in the energy of going into, yeah, fuck it, what am I supposed to be creating? And I would even keep it simple in very Aries-like fashion, like don't overcomplicate it, where it's like, hey, what is the universe asking me to create this week? Seems easy, right? But we also have Chiron in Aries squaring Mars that's in its post shadow down in Cancer. And so part of the ego undercutting our efforts could be wanting to focus too much on our own personal needs, not looking at the relationships, not looking at where we're stable enough and the things that are working, and innovating and building on top of that, and actually wanting to hunker down more because of, it could be imposter syndrome, it could be feeling tired, not our strongest, like, who am I to do this? Like, but it could also be the overcompensation of ego too, of wanting to protect emotionally, to not be vulnerable and actually put ourselves out there. The square is actually a reminder, a wake-up call for the healers to like get out of bed, actually, take some action that feels like an intuitive place that is not only going to be satisfying for your foundation, but it's of service to others. So it's actually your rawest, weakest parts, so the things you probably don't want to do or deal with. It's probably the thing that's going to actually help you move forward the most in your personal life and actually feel more stable. So it's not about being afraid to take action, because of feeling sensitivities, because Venus and Mercury are trying to work together and figure out a lot of answers, but we don't have them for moving forward. This is a lot about the application of the basics intuitively whenever these things come up. You got to remember, this is a time where we're shifting more into what I would call this equal base reality, where people have to come together in groups that they want to achieve a certain powerful agenda with that Pluto. But it's also about, I think, using that Venus retrograde, that Mercury retrograde, to own your value systems within yourself fully and not get sucked into those agendas, and be okay with being the whistleblower of truth, because you're digging down and finding truth within yourself, that you're willing to go, wow, this is it can feel like looking for a needle in a haystack, and it's a lot of complexity to find a lot of answers, but it's actually more simple. This is actually evolving into not falling for these traps in the collective that feels like there's going to be some rooted safety or security, when really it's bucking the evolutionary work to trust our internal guidance system more, and to not need the full-blown map. This is a reminder that we've always been the map, but now we're just owning it more fully. Our potency comes from knowing that we are the creator. We have everything on this earth to supply us with what we need. We have everything spiritually connected. This lunar eclipse was really highlighting, and still is, with that South Node in Virgo, that there are a lot of systems that are collapsing, both very physical in front of our eyes, but also the stuff that is kind of tucked off to the side, and it's that thing that you don't notice anymore. It's the 5G tower, it's the freaking chemtrails in the sky. Basically, it's all the weird frequency-based control systems that kind of make people sick and unhappy and feeling dumb, and creates this weird thing mentally, and actually rising above that and going, okay, well, yeah, that stuff is out there, but how do we adapt on a very deeply spiritual level to find that connection with God, to rise above that, and to actually anchor in a higher level frequency, and to pray for true resolution universally across this planet, to deal with these issues, but also not be critical of them. How to make sure that we're not falling into some victim thing of well, I'm not feeling well, I'm having XYZ symptoms, or trying to overly fix that. A lot of this really is the understanding that it's okay if it feels like the tuner of the radio station is controlling itself. It reminds me of the old movies, with the old radio station, and all of a sudden the tuner starts going back and forth, and it's it's a spirit, it's a ghost trying to get to us. And so this is about understanding that any frequency that you're tuned into that might be affecting your day-to-day reality, that is not going to have a perfect schedule, you're not going to feel a perfect way, probably with your health, your routines, that these retrogrades in Aries are bringing up. The tuner's going back and forth because we're figuring things out. It's pretty simple, actually. You're not going to feel your best if your mind is focused on values that are not achievable, values that can't be achieved now, values that are very egoic. This is actually about being okay with the divine resetting the chessboard. And so actually when the radio tuner starts going crazy, maybe accept that it's not some negative thing, and then it's the divine trying to come in and just get you to go in a certain direction. And it's not going to be the ultimate direction. It's going to be a very step-by-step process. Sometimes it can feel like you're chasing your tail a little bit, because some of this is all this Pisces Aries energy is actually the intuition is going to be trying to direct you more to your patterns and what you're releasing. so that you can be ready for like a truer initiation that comes not only with the solar eclipse on the 29th, but then immediately after is the next day of Neptune coming into Aries and then Saturn joining it in April. And so this is dealing a lot with new initiations, but like we're still in this uncomfortable space where, sure, I think we would all like to see where it's going, what's on the other side, like to actually feel like we're gaining traction with accomplishing like some direction that feels strong and empowering. But I think it's more so just like being this humble spiritual person that actually gets their strength from accepting that we don't need to feel like weak just because we live in a modern day culture where there's amenities and fixes being offered everywhere to make us feel better, to kind of go back into the familiar comfort zone, which can be really addicting, but it's sabotaging for the spiritual evolution of where things are going. And so it's being okay with the random fluctuations, the short circuiting that can occur, and that can feel like it's in yourself, that can feel like it's in your partnerships. But I guarantee you, if you're okay with just the acceptance this week that God is trying to help retune us and reprogram us from all the deconditioning work that we've been doing from working in this reality, and how that can show up in the mind and the body and fears and stuff like that. And when it's time to take action, to actually take these creative opportunities, I think that's when things like get more clear with building bridges in our relationships with other people. This can be a really healing time for that, because a lot of this is a deep social level responsibility for the frequency that we're tuned into. And that if you can come in and actually own that part, you'll see a lot of the issues that you feel with others, actually a lot of it was also your contribution to it. Is just pretty simple. You shift your frequency dynamic, and like you don't have as much of those harsh dealings and harsh lessons with things, even though they're actually kind of gentle. It's just that I think in some ways this astrology can feel like we're just like over it. Like, it's like it being 10 o'clock on a Wednesday on a work day, and we want it to be Friday, but the South Node in Virgo is like telling us none of that matters. The schedule, the clock, what time it is, what part of the day it is, like these systems of the way that we've been programmed to understand reality, I'm gonna be honest, that's all going away. So we got to be okay with like more of this fogged out spiritual flow of things, that even when we're trying to initiate and take steps to move forward, there's going to be unknowns. Which is why it behooves us to, like, when the intuition, that lightning bolt like kicks in, that random, oh, I want to go create this, I want to go do this thing, we just go and do it. We go with the flow and we figure it out. We find the tool along the way, we find our worth along the way, we find the momentum along the way. It's like, it's okay if Spirit's holding space for the confidence and the expression of the uncertain territory, to go outside the comfort zone and do new things, and to just keep showing up. Because remember, like with this Chiron square to Mars, it can be really easy to be like, yeah, I just don't want to show up today. Let me just take a personal day. It hurts too much. And I think that we have to like really be sincere, with ourselves, and checking in with the spiritual connection, to be like, is that really the thing to do right now? Or is that just our ego that wants to have some need met that can't be met right now? Is it something where we aren't able to like figure something out that feels complex, and so it's just easier to try to like wait for the information to come and just be like, it's okay, but it's like putting it off till tomorrow type thing. This is so much about like the divine timing, just taking these actions on things. And so I think that the solstice this week, it brings up a really interesting opportunity to definitely find empowerment, but it's going to be finding empowerment through like it's okay, like answers are coming, and it's not the whole thing, but it's the answers to just like go to the next thing, and that can be really empowering. Let me do something creative that solves an issue that's like of service, that's helpful to people. Let me try this action step that's kind of crazy, outside the box, innovative, even though it brings up some fear, but like it's okay. I checked it. It's coming from more of an intuitive space of things, and it's just gonna be basic and make sense because it's already something that you've been manifesting, sort of dreaming about like anyway. The stuff that pops out of nowhere, I think that's being careful about that part. Like that could be that impulsive, let me just go try this thing to stimulate some excitement and like move some energy. Honestly, it's better to like move the energy in a very slow, sustainable, creative way this week that's not too crazy and exhausting, because we're in between eclipses. This is exhausting energy, all the Pisces, all the Aries. It's like there's enough excitement occurring on planet Earth without us like introducing the new stuff. So this is like the personal approach to this week. This is like the innovative steps that you can take to like get out of the storm, basically, where it's like it's being okay with understanding from a very basic perspective. And this can be humbling, but it's like you are the ocean, but you're the pin drop in it. It's like, where is your spot in the world and your contribution? Like, how can you bring in something that sustains itself over time that maybe some people won't totally find the appreciation or value in today, but like it will if you keep doing it 20 years from now and like innovating like with it, especially being guided by spirit. Honestly, the thing that's the sensational contribution can be more so like, hey, like this idea dropped in based upon this intuitive subconscious reprogramming of myself to embody more of this value. And so I feel like it's the time to start putting pen to paper and actually messing with this and experimenting with it. Great. Learn something new about yourself by being okay with like putting it out into the world like in that way. This is actually a really good social week. I actually think that this is the time that people can kind of like wake up and go, oh yeah, let me go like hang out with people. It's like, shit, let me snap out of that. I have been in like an introverted spell, like with this Pisces energy. Now it's still honoring the fact that it's creating time and space alone with the divine to make sure that you're still clear on the unconscious patterns and not just like throwing your baggage like down and not coming back to it and being out with the world and people and social situations all the time. It's also, if you have trouble connecting with others like during this time, if they feel aloof, you feel aloof, it's probably just like some weird emotional wound, and it's actually a call for vulnerability. It's like, talk about the elephant in the room. And even if that's more of a collective thing, to be honest, like it's going to be so foggy with the world collective, national in the US like peace right now. It's almost like trying to paint it as it's like it's okay, but it's like really like not, in terms of like the traditions that it's like it's okay, we're just like doing this and this. It's also remembering too that like some things that look like that they're cold-hearted and too maybe like masculine, or there's like not empathy, that there's not compassion. I think we have to kind of go through a surrender to go, fuck it, like just embody that for yourself personally, and then extend that loving Pisces energy out to others. Don't like critique the world that there's not enough empathy or compassion, or for a person or for groups of people, or what is this world going to. because that's that part of that drop in the ocean. We can't control that. We cannot control what other people are doing or what the reality that people are choosing to exist. Like, all perceptions of reality are valid during this time, because that is just the intrinsic holographic experience that people choose to work out their karma, to work out what it is that they're manifesting and creating, and how they're choosing to experience energy in this reality. Some people will be victims and reacting, and poor me. Some people will be like, hey, that's just the way it is, and not have empathy. Some people will be like, fuck, this is a lot. But it's like, okay, I'm changing, but I gotta be compassionate with myself and also others as we're going through these changes, because no one has all the answers right now. It is a lot to deal with, but this is where I think we just keep it more in this simple solstice, front of things, to where we're not charging into battles that cannot be won. We don't have the resources, we don't have the facts. It's coming from a very wounded place, of charging in. So if you see anyone saying anything about possibly going to war, that's personally, that's collectively, it's bad news bears. It always is, but it's especially kind of yeah, that would be like sending out the soldiers for reconnaissance and then declaring war before they get back, and they're like, actually they want a treaty, actually this person wants to be cool with you, and it's like, well, fuck, I already declared war. It's like, don't jump the gun this week or at all during this entire Aries season, because there's still a lot more to come. We're going to have Mercury retrograde for most of the Aries season, and same thing with Venus won't go direct till the 10th of April. So, it's paying attention to these things. And I know it can feel weird because Venus, Mercury, even Chiron, you could throw in there, are all out in front. And so the sun's coming in like the sun does. It's like dad, mom, whatever, the parent energy, that protector energy, and Venus and Mercury out here playing, and it's like, look at this, I found these rocks, and it's like, well, wait, I thought you were gonna go find diamonds. Venus actually wants prosperity, it wants quality, so it can get frustrating if what we're finding isn't exactly what we think that we want. But it's give it time, let the sun catch up to these planets, especially by the middle of the week for Venus, and even Mercury by the end of the week, because this is a positioning where if we can actually illuminate and just look at what is actually coming into our lives, and just be humble and appreciative, this is just very basic satisfaction, gratitude, we'll actually see that there is value to it, because it's some lesson that is preparing us for a deeper understanding of the person that we're meant to be, moving forward into this crazy new direction. I know it can be all over the board and look so different for people, but if it feels hard, or you're not satisfied, or you're dealing with XYZ problems, cool. You're an awakened soul that's dealing with the growing pains of an old world shedding and a new one coming in, and it's a little slower than what maybe the ego thought, where it's actually let's do the compassion and empathy and actually have a funeral for the old world. And then also the weird can feel Jesus coming back from the dead, the resurrection a little bit, knowing that those outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, that are going to go into new signs this year, but then retrograde back, and Saturn too, that it is this space where it's all right, no, we're not done with this old world yet. It resurrects itself, but at least we're getting a glimpse into that. At least we're doing the deep subconscious reprogramming that comes from the divine tune-up, and not a media-based one. So this is a time for people to come together. This is a time for being okay with like, I have this wound, you have that wound, like we're all dealing with like some challenge in our lives, but like let's actually showcase like self-authorship of true empathy. But I think that starts within ourselves like too, because we've already been dealing with this since 2019, and it's not going away until finally 2028. Of every time we have the sun come into Aries, it's always like, oh fuck, there's Chiron. What's up, Chiron? Yeah, I see ya. I know we're dealing with masculine ego wounds, and it doesn't matter your gender. Like, yep, we're dealing with those sensitivities of, you know, could be irritation, frustration, having to take action, but it still feels messy, or it's not getting the intended result. Like there's friction, you know, there's honestly, it brings up the healing of the ugliness of the masculine, is what you could say. And that's a lot of what you see these past few years, whether it's like with woke culture or, you know, cries against, you know, the patriarchy, you know, kind of like these still false systems of understanding like what's actually happened, where it's the pin, the tail, and the donkey. Like it's blame the Chiron and Aries, blame this part of what humanity's going through. It's men's fault, it's the patriarchy's fault, it's a white man's fault, it's, you know, this and this and this, when it's like, but we're all a part of this, like collectively, where we're all healing these internal identity like wounds that we have to remember to like nourish again this week. Because once again, Chiron and Cancer are squaring for the third time. Because, you know, I mean, it started doing this like back in the fall, and then it retrograded, and then it squared it again this year, and like now it's like squaring it again here one final time as it's like going forward. So we've already been dealing with these issues, but this is asking us, like, do you actually know how to integrate that? Do you actually know, like, you've got enough like basic things that you can do to like meet your needs better? And there's a lot of correlation directly between the amount of resistance that you feel in life right now and how well you're taking care of yourself. And with the South Node in Virgo, it's not going to be, hey, it's this juice fast, hey, it's this diet, hey, it's this thing, or hey, it's a parasite cleanse. It's like, it could be those things, but it's North Node of Pisces. Did it come from a channel place, an intuitive place? Because that North Node of Pisces actually asks us to very compassionately look at the ailments that we're feeling and to not pathologize them, like not make them wrong, criticize them, and examine it from a total three-dimensional model and then point of view, but doing it from the higher dimensions, the 5D and up, looking down and actually getting the understanding of what's actually occurring. Because honestly, sometimes our guides might be like, yeah, that's nothing. That's just, you're just worried. South Node in Virgo just brings up worry, 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 worry. It's the fucking rabbit in Alice in Wonderland that with the North Node of Pisces is like, hey, maybe you should have just stayed in bed that day because you didn't have a good day anyway, and you just ran around frantic and, you know, flipped the fuck out that you were late for all of your schedule and your routines and shit. When it's like Saturn, the master of a time up here in Pisces, going, there is a divinely timed thing to it. Now, we still exist in a physical reality though, right? We're not like astronauts floating up in space like with our spirit guides. So we had to, I think, use our intuition like better for creating our routines, creating our schedules. This could be more of a, seems not sophisticated to the mind, but an innovative sophistication approach of like using your human design strategy and authority and like learning that and following that, and like that at least if it's sloppy, which it still will be because it's Pisces, that at least there'll be some Saturn lessons in there for us. But, you know, I'm not going to lie, everyone. I mean, like, in a perfect vacuum, you know, we could all just be in our own like frequency bubbles and take care of ourselves and create and just connect and have a very good time. But the truth is that we're all feeling the growing pains of the cosmos, of Earth, of what people are going through. And that deserves tremendous amounts of compassion and empathy. And I think what's hard with this spring solstice, or excuse me, the spring equinox, is like the understanding that we cannot just like move forward with business as usual, that actually we're taking, once again, yes, a look at our wounds with Chiron there, but also, as I said, it's like, what's up with the wounds, you know, with people, and like what's going on there, and just where other people are at. And I think there's a humble piece too of like, it's not about going being around people less or around people more, the right people or the wrong people. It's a very authentic social responsibility to go, the people that are around you are just a reflection of, you know, what you've been manifesting and what you've been learning, you know. And that people always want to talk about, you know, boundaries and things like that. But I think what's hard about this is that the ego is not going to get the boundaries like met in the way that it likes to. It's going to feel like you still got some Siamese like twin situation or something with a person or a frequency, or you need help from people or a relationship of like figuring out the clues like in your own life. And so this isn't about like being bubble boy, you know, and just like staying at home and over nurturing with the Chiron Mars square. The moon this week is going to be mostly going through Sag, Capricorn, and Aquarius. And so again, not going into that new moon solar eclipse yet. So there is an aspect of, yes, lots of sociable connection energy, but also very diligent, you know, like wanting to get things done. But I think that, especially when that moon goes through Capricorn, we need to remember to like take pauses, you know, take breaks, that we're not like rushing into drawing conclusions of like where things are and trying to like get ahead of the game, because that moon is gonna, yes, make sextiles over to all the Pisces to kind of want to get to the end of those conclusions and just be done with it. But it's squaring over to the Aries energy where it's like, oh, yep, you know, false start. It's like the marathon runner that started running before the gun was fired. It's a lot of like, hey, it's okay, more clues are coming. The funniest thing is that the clues that are probably coming to, that I've been alluding to, are probably the clues that are not going to satisfy. How do I fix it and make it go back to like it was? It's actually going to bring in more clues and evidence that's reminding you to be a spiritual badass, to like show the fuck up and just be your best, even when it feels like you don't want to be, or it's hard, or it's this ailment, or it's this person. And to be that way shower and to just keep showing up over and over and over again. And it's like, get your rest when it's like it checks out on every level, not just mentally, but somewhat physically, but I say especially on the spiritual level. And remember, you know, like people have free will, like people get the power to like make their own choices like during this time, right? Remember, what does fear do? Fear, trauma, it removes choice, right? So love reinstates it, right? Love is that opposite of fear. Like love and compassion is what helps trauma, leftover energy where there's fear stored. So whether it's like the collective fear of, you know, this is a week where it could feel like, here we go again. Like this, it's like early 2020 all over again. Or here we go again, you know, this is another like reset in terms of how we understand this reality that we're not like flipping out. We're not saying that, oh, this is coming down or this. And it's almost like people are becoming hobbyists on social media and sensationalizing, like, look at this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And it's like, you're just like cherry picking and like looking for stuff to say that something's going wrong. And the only like wrong thing that would be going on would be totally ignoring our intuition, our soul's calling to come home back to God, and acting something out in the ego that's very sabotaging, or I'm just going to say it, lazy, like causes delays in your own life because you're pushing away God's marching orders that are not going to look like Pinky in the Brain shit. Like, what are we going to do tonight? We're going to try to take over the world. It's going to look more like, how do we like go back and deal with the identification wound in the first place of like, why did Brain want to take over the world? Why did Pinky follow him? You know, like that'll, like the inner motivations. That's a lot of what this Aries season is actually going to be about. It's digging into your why, but that's going to be a hard question to answer. It's going to be more of a raw nature, root chakra sort of, what is the motivation here? Like, what is motivating me? Okay, it's my survival. Okay, that's ego, but it's like, if we're in survival mode and that's the frequency that we're at, that's what this week is like, it's a chance to go to the next level. It's a chance to go get through a false ceiling that we've created collectively for ourselves, and how that can feel personal too, to holding ourselves back subconsciously to not go to the next level because we're in that fear-based survival. How are we going to like create and be connected to our dreams if we're in that mode? Like, we need to be in a version of ourselves that fully believes, because honestly, the thing that's really getting kind of like left out and not really getting aspected in the zodiac with any major things this week is Jupiter in Gemini. So it's like, in some ways, like, it's okay to like keep a positive mindset and attitude. I mean, Jupiter understands as it moves forward that it is stepping into a hard square with Saturn, but it's not strong yet. It just knows that it's headed there, that we're going to have to deal with some of the deepest reprogramming ever, but it's going to be even harder then, because it's going to be having to change how we think about this reality, because the circumstances are in our face, and that we're having to go, okay, well, what do I do? Do I just like give up? Do I like go find like a religion? Do I like find God more? I think a lot of it is like really deep levels of responsibility for going, yeah, okay, like we reap what we sow, and that could be over a span of multiple lifetimes, because it's Pisces. We always got to remember that it's like these are the like karmic carryover leftovers, right? But doing all this work now that I'm talking about is so that, especially when Neptune and Saturn are fully into Aries next year, you could even say here in a little over a year, in about 15-ish, 16 months, when the North Node is in Aquarius with Pluto and not Pisces, that it's like, we didn't carry over the creepiest shit, which would be, I'm afraid, so I'm joining a religion, or I'm afraid, so I'm going to be a part of a religion and project onto others. I'm going to be afraid and just consume media to try to like keep me like comforted in my like little hidey hole. It's dealing with these lower extreme vibrations that Aquarius like brings up, and honestly like can create some really heavy karma with Saturn here, of like not dealing with these old karmic wounds that we're pathologizing, and to actually get to the higher frequencies that Pisces brings up of compassion and empathy. But Saturn will not let us bypass and won't let us just go straight to the love and light. It's actually going to be saying like, no, you actually have to look at the ironclad part of what's going on in your reality, as it's at least part of your responsibility to subconsciously change your patterns, the way that you think about spirituality. So it's like, it's not the novelty part of it. It is the true, are you actually like disciplined in it? Do you actually have a spiritual connection? Like, is your subconscious thinking even like motivated to like getting the slop out of your life to be a better spiritual person? And it's not about a south node purification, you know, in a religious context. It's more so just like, hey, like, a lot of this astrology is take care of yourself so that you can show up for others in its most basic sense. Like literally, like if there was one theme in the astrology this week, it's that, because people need our help, people need your help, and you have to be able to help yourself and be connected to spirit. Just, you know, basics, you know, spirituality 101, but this astrology like 101, to not get it too complicated, but then also it's not bucking the responsibilities to go deep into these spaces because it feels too painful or hard. Because I can tell you, the more I learn about past lives, like the hardest part is the understanding that it's the compounding negative interest of like the workload that wasn't done in this life. And so then you push it off to a new life, but then it's even harder, because that's always what Pisces teaches, is the irrational fears, the phobias. Those come up as emotional responses to some really deep hidden subconscious thing. And the reason that it's hidden, it doesn't make sense, is because it's not related to something you're experiencing currently. It's from your past. It's from those first 30 years of life leading up to Saturn return that reflect the karma from the past lives. And so this is difficult because this is not something that can be marketed and packaged in some Pisces media way to sell people like true healing to deal with the karmic balancing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fake spiritual people out there that promise like cures and solutions for people to get them what they want based upon like